Good morning, everyone. The simple handicap for Monday, August 2nd. Thank you for making me a part of your morning. We're saying August for the first time in the podcast, which means football just around the corner. Hall of Fame game coming up on the weekend. Then we get into preseason, and we're just now 6 weeks away from the kickoff of the 2021 regular season. It's coming quick, and I'm looking forward to it. Moving on with the NFL team previews, we have the New York Giants coming in this morning at a ranking of 30. And quite frankly, it was probably interchangeable whether or not I do the Giants or the Eagles today, given them both the same rating of a 30. But I can't help but feel like even though I'm doing the Giants first, I'm probably more optimistic about this team moving forward than I am the Philadelphia Eagles, at least in 2021. And really, this is like the prove-it year for this Gettleman rebuild situation that has been going on for the last 3 seasons. Now going into year 4, he has Judge, he has Garrett in place again to run the offense for the second season in a row. And it just seems like all the pieces are here for something to click. The addition of Kenny Golladay, I really can't think that can be overlooked to how important that is going to be for this offense. Giants really haven't. They had the number one wide receiver in Odell Beckham Jr., but they haven't had a guy like Golladay with his size and reliability out wide probably since Plaxico Burress in the mid-2000s with Eli Manning. And once he was added in to that team years ago, that really sparked that offense and gave Manning that reliable receiver. That's really what Jones needs, especially considering how the offensive line has really failed to give him any sort of support last season as well. So coming into this year, not improving that offensive line, having Golladay out wide is going to be fantastic. But then there's probably going to be some optimism coming into the season just about the health in general of the team. Last year, the Giants finished 5-3 and made a potential run there at the playoffs late in such a bad division that the NFC East is. But you're going to have Daniel Jones healthy. He was just banged up the entire second half last season. Obviously, Saquon Barkley missed with the knee injury the majority of the season. And then you have guys like Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, all healthy coming in. And you start to look down this depth chart, and it's big name, reliable receivers, lots of talent everywhere you look, especially on the offensive side. And so when I'm comparing a team like this to that of the Jags or the Bengals, which I've talked about to finish the week last week, even though I saw optimism with both of those teams, I look at this team and it's a very similar situation, but the names are all experienced. These aren't new guys coming into the lineup. These are guys that have been there with this team or been there with other teams. And I think that bodes very well for the Giants and the direction that this team is going. And the kicker for me in all of this, really sort of important thing is I look at their win total right now, 7.5, heavily shaded to the under. They're priced to win the NFC, enormous, plus 3,800 currently at Pinnacle. The price to win the NFC East, plus 400. Like, there's some big price tags out here on the Giants, and given the landscape of the division, like, you can't overstate how bad the NFC East is going to be. And it reminds me of last year where I was in the back room of a sports book in Las Vegas chatting with the guys back there, and one of them pulled out his phone. And we were just going back and forth talking about lines and debating prices and stuff. And he goes, how can the Giants, I believe they were 25-1 at the time. It was like mid-season. It's like, how can the Giants be this high in a division this poor? And that thought sort of stuck with me and is sort of in my mind as we go through a lot of these previews. Like some of these teams, like the Jags, which we talked about last week, like the Giants now that we're talking about, have these big prices around them in just really, really weak divisions. Like the love that Washington is getting is bizarre. And I've come around on it a little bit. Like I was excited when they signed Fitzpatrick, and I was excited about the prospect of that team coming into the season. But in just a couple of days, I'm going to give a lot more reasons to be pessimistic about the Washington football team this season than there is optimism. Like you look at that quarterback depth chart, and it's bizarre that it's getting that much love and warranting that much attention. The Philadelphia Eagles, who I'll talk about tomorrow, I can make a lot of cases that they're significantly worse than the Giants. And then the Cowboys, which we'll get to in a couple of weeks, obviously the best looking team within this league, but they're not void of question marks themselves either. And so relative to the price that's being offered for the Giants within this division, considering the talent, considering the experience, considering the potential upside, if Daniel Jones is who the entire organization thinks he is, and we all see those good moments come through much more often, there's a lot of potential here for the Giants playing out of this week of a division. Obviously, with all of these previews, there's a good and there's a bad. And the bad for the Giants is very much obvious too. And I just mentioned it. It is Daniel Jones. When you look at his numbers from a season ago, a lot of rankings of 32nd, 35th, 37th, borderline not starting numbers in the NFL for a lot of cases. How much of that was due to the offensive line not being able to support him? Well, most likely a lot. But the problem is the Giants didn't do anything in the offseason to potentially change that going into 2021. Nate Solder is going to be back, but how far is that going to go to fix an offensive line that ranked 31st in pass blocking efficiency? They were 21st in adjusted line yards in the rushing game. Saquon Barkley's coming back, sure, but if there's not holes for him to run to, these health concerns that are piling up with him, is he going to be able to make it a full season? Daniel Jones beginning to struggle in many cases under pressure, being forced to scramble, really uncomfortable for the majority of games. If he's not able to get time in the pocket, how efficient is he going to be passing the football to all of these weapons, which we just talked about? So there's worry here for obvious reasons with the quarterback and the offensive line. The secondary issues potentially negated with Adoree Jackson being added in there. There's certainly reason to believe the secondary is going to be much better in 2021, but how much support are they going to have up front? There are big names in that front seven, but there's a serious lack of depth too. And so once you get beyond a couple of the starters and the big names that catch your eye, there's really not a lot of support there. So the Giants are going to have to play a season where in the front seven, they're going to have to really avoid injuries in order to have this defense playing to the level that it potentially can be. There's reason to believe the secondary is going to be good, but if the front seven starts to fall apart, that's going to bring the secondary down quite a bit. So you're really going to need a healthy season on the defensive side of the football if you are backing the over or betting the Giants to win the division or make a playoff run. That's going to be a huge key for it. And so while there is a lot of optimism, this is the same for almost every team. There's a couple glaring issues here that could go wrong for the Giants in 2021. But I think in general, just looking at this team, looking at the experience they have in some spots, looking at a few of the new additions on the offensive side they added in the offseason, there's just a lot more to be positive about within what is probably going to be the worst division in the NFL than there is to be negative. And so I like the prospects of the Giants. And if you can find that 4-1, I'm looking at it right now on the screen at Pinnacle. It's available elsewhere too. You can get that 4-1 to win the division. You pair that along with that 8-1 on the Jags to win their division. Those are two pretty good future bets to be holding for division prices going into 2021. And they're definitely prices I think that you should have in your account. That'll do it for me today. Enjoy your holiday Monday if you're in Canada, your regular Monday if you're in the United States, and I will talk to you tomorrow morning.